Hey fam, welcome back. Tisha here, back for another chapter reading of Christine Brown Woolley's Sister Wife, a memoir of faith, family, and finding freedom. Go ahead and do me a favor and hit the like button as it helps the channel. Chapter 8, My Most Magical Moments. When we got married, we moved around a lot. It seemed like every few years, Cody would need to look for something new. We lived poor for so long, and he wanted to better support the family. That first year, Janelle had Logan, and I had Aspen. The trailer in Wyoming couldn't accommodate all of us, so about a year later, we moved first to West Jordan, Utah, then a year later, nearby to Sandy, and then a year later, we moved to another house in Sandy. In the meantime, Mary had Leon, Janelle had Madison, I had McKelty, and Janelle had Hunter and then Garrison. So we had 4 adults and 7 kids to care for and feed. You are all struggling, but we're going to keep having babies even though we're struggling. I understand this is part of their religion. I'm just stating what I'm thinking. And this is coming from somebody who has a large family, who has a lot of aunts and uncles. So, and even more great aunts and great uncles. Like, I don't know what was going on back then. But anyway, you're struggling and you're having more babies. Come on. And moving all over the place. So many babies too. It seemed as if someone was pregnant at all times. When I was pregnant with McKelty, I felt decisive and beautiful. The most beautiful I've ever been in my life. When it was time, we called the midwife, a man who usually worked with his first wife, but she couldn't make it. So he brought another wife I'd never worked with. I did know her though, through our church. I didn't know her through our church. Do you know what you're doing? I asked when she arrived. Yeah, she said. I've been delivering babies for far longer than my sister wife. She brought her Bible, and during contraction, she read verses. Once again, Cody was fantastic. He got right into my face and stared at me the whole time. He took every breath with me, and he was completely present. That was my fastest labor, which describes McKelty to a T. If she's going to do something, she just does it. That's all there is to it. Afterward, I passed out immediately. Mary and Janelle in their own bedroom slept through it. My labor lasted only 4 hours. Then Cody and I both fell asleep, so no one in the house knew I had given birth. And oh, she was beautiful. McKelty was the prettiest newborn. I wonder when things changed and everyone became a part of it. Because remember, it was this big to-do when Robin was giving birth. So when did it change to where everybody wanted to be involved? We constantly needed more space, and each move involved babies and pregnancies and 3 households, along with an abundance of food. In addition to canning and freezing, we bought everything in bulk because there were so many of us. But Mormons were preppers before preparing was a thing. During the Cold War, we were taught, all of us, not just polygamists, to store food in case of nuclear war. Now it's so we can be self-reliant as well as help others in need. You can even buy bulk food items like canned flour and oxygen exhaustion packets at the LDS online store. It's a lot to move. But while the moves caused chaos, we had also come to rely on each other for childcare, cooking, and financial stability. Cody and I also started to even out. And I believe we were building a deeper relationship that would continue to grow. About 4 years into our marriage, Cody and I had a moment that made me believe I could be with him for eternity. It took 4 years for her to feel that way based on the way things were beforehand. My goodness. Cody sold educational and entertainment DVDs and other products about the Book of Mormon, the Bible, and religious history. We had them for our kids too. Cody won a competition and he got to go to the LDS historical site of Nauvoo to sell the DVDs, which would likely be a windfall for our family. He chose me to go with him. Of course, because you're royalty, probably. In 1830, Joseph Smith, our original prophet, founded the LDS Church in New York State, but he and his followers had to flee several times because people didn't take kindly to this new religion. After fleeing Missouri, the Mormons landed in Illinois, where the church bought land and called their new city Nauvoo. People didn't much like the Mormons in Nauvoo either, and a mob killed Smith and his brother. Mormons go back to see Joseph Smith's homestead, the Smith family cemetery, the site where Smith and his brothers were killed, the original temple site, and the Joseph Smith Mansion house where the temple ceremonies were performed. Cody and I got to spend 2 weeks together with Aspen, who was 3, and McKelty, who was 2. We stayed in a tiny hotel room, and it was so much fun. I spent the whole time finding things for McKelty to do because she was curious about everything. Cutest and busiest little kid. Aspen was a little calmer as a toddler. On our last day in Nauvoo, Cody introduced me to a coworker as his wife. Has he met Mary, I asked. He hadn't. Mary had gone to Cody's work parties back home, but the Nauvoo guys hadn't met her. I remember thinking it was so cool that he introduced me to them as his wife. It didn't happen often. Cody later told me he looked at me as we drove home from that trip and realized he was in love with me. That was hard to hear. I had fallen in love with Cody long before, and now we were 4 years into our marriage. That means Christine knew as early as 4 years into her marriage that her husband wasn't initially in love with her. I thought she just found this out. I'm just saying I like Christine, but I'm reading this and it seems to me like 4 years into your marriage, you found out that the man wasn't in love with you, that he didn't love you until then. It's crazy. I thought maybe that's just how love works. Maybe love is slow. Maybe you fall in love over your shared story, over your experiences. I remember telling my brother I thought Titanic the movie was dumb because that's not how love happens, I told him. There's no such thing as instant love or love at first sight. No one falls in love like that. Romantic, huh? I'm sure the little girl with the yellow towel would have rebelled against the notion that true deep soulmate love didn't exist. How could I have my fairy tale without it? But I believe Cody and I had something rich and emotional because we had been friends first and then had worked to develop our love. That was my experience, my only experience with love. I told my kids that's how it works. Build a strong friendship and love will come over time. In the meantime, Cody talked to the kids about the need for a contract, like love is a business arrangement you enter rather than a romantic, loving partnership. I understood that fairy tales were for monogamists, but they didn't have the special relationship with God that we did. And Cody and I had great dates. We went on trips together. We sang together in the car. We loved Phantom of the Opera. I, of course, sang the Christine parts, and he has a great voice. We loved to dance together. We even got into a rhythm with sex, and there were a few years where it was kind of good. She said kind of good. It wasn't good. It was kind of good. David rocked that lady's world. I'm telling you. She didn't know until she met David. About 2 years into our marriage, I had my first orgasm. It was 2 years? Oh, wow. Oh, Cody gonna be mad about this. Oh, that's what everyone's been excited about. Been so excited about, Christine. When I figured that out too, I thought the same thing. It was was entirely accidental, but still, knowing Cody loved me helped me feel like I had a solid role in the family. As crazy as it sounds, considering how difficult it had been for the four of us to get along, as well as our limited financial situation, we were all open to the idea of Cody bringing in a fourth wife in those early years. We were all close in age with children who were close in age, so it made sense to us to add a fourth while we were young. Yeah, but for whatever reason, a lot of these men don't do that. I'm sure we were thinking she could also get a job and we'd make it work. And we probably figure she could help change the family dynamic to something more positive yet again. A young woman, maybe 19, from our church expressed her interest. I liked her a lot, and she had gone about it properly. Cody asked the head of our church, who was my grandpa, if he could court the girl respectfully, just as he had done before dating Mary, Janelle, and me. I can picture my grandpa nodding and as he listened, then taking a slow breath. You know, Cody, my grandpa said, I don't think you're taking care of the wives you have. Whoa. And she says, whoa, too. My mom had told my grandpa that we didn't have any money. I asked her how she could say such a thing. Well, it's because it's true, she said. It is true. You just said it yourself. Fair, but it caused a problem between my mom and the Cody Brown family for a while. Life continued as before, with little break. In 1998, I gave birth to Peyton while we lived in Sandy. With Peyton, I had awful morning sickness. I worked at a car dealership while I was pregnant with him, and my personality completely changed. I felt so easygoing. I could talk to anyone, and I did. I was more talkative than I've ever been in my life. People would come in, and I would chat forever. That's Peyton. He can talk to anybody about anything, and there's never a barrier. Peyton was my hardest labor. He kept yo-yoing up and down and up, which is still what he does. He vacillates and has a rough time making decisions, like whether he should come into the world. Cody and the midwife had to press my belly to help push Peyton out. Immediately after he was born, Janelle came in and held him, and he opened his eyes and looked right at her. They have had the closest bond since the first moment, and it was such a cool thing to witness, especially since her sons became his brothers. At our house, he only had sisters. That is true. They have always been close, and Peyton very much so hangs out a lot with her kids and her sons. Back to the book. From Sandy, we moved back to Wyoming in 1998, and that's where I had my most magical moments with the Cody Brown family. We lived in a 3-bedroom ranch-style house, which meant the kids, who were toddlers, lived in bedrooms with their mothers. Cody rotated from room to room. We would wait until the kids were asleep and then try to keep quiet. The house was small. Janelle and I each had a bedroom off the living room by the only bathroom. Mary's bedroom was on the other side of the living room, and while she had one child, hers was the biggest. Neither Janelle nor I wanted the others to have to share a wall with Mary because she could be difficult. So we volunteered to take the small bedroom. What was Mary doing? And if you're going to say she could be difficult, can you tell us finally what it is that made Mary so difficult, Christine, please? That meant I shared a wall with Janelle, which was ridiculously awkward because we also shared a husband. But everything was hard, including having to share a tiny kitchen while trying to feed an enormous family. In the tiny space, Mary's rules grew even stricter. I don't care how towels are folded. They go in the drawer and they're folded. In fact, I don't care if they get folded at all, as long as they end up in the drawer. This is where I can kind of relate to Mary, because I'm particular about certain things as well. But if it's a thing where you don't fold them to my liking, I'll just fold them myself. That's just me. Like, I remember very early on when I used to take my son to go wash clothes and stuff, when we had a whole bunch of clothes and I take him to a laundromat so it could get done faster, that I had to like kind of chill out because he doesn't fold the way that I like to fold and it drives me nuts. But that's my issue. As long as it's in his drawer and it's neat, then so what if he doesn't fold the towel like how you fold the towel? Unless it's going in my linen closet. That's a problem, but you get what I'm saying. So I get it. It just seems like Mary's more organized and she might have a slight case of OCD. And from one slight OCD to another, I understand Mary in that. I'm just saying. We went through towels so quickly, we barely had time to fold them. I don't care if kids play in the Tupperware cupboard or make a mess. I don't care if they eat all the food on their plates or take 3 bites. You should have consequences for your actions, but I'm more casual with my parenting style. When we all lived together, Janelle and I, as well as our kids, followed stricter rules to keep the peace with Mary. But also because when you have so many people living with you, the kids can't be making messes all the time. I'm still not hearing what's so bad. I think we all grew up with various forms of rules. I know that it was very, very strict for us. To this day, I don't leave my room without making my bed because that was very much so a rule in the household. Dishes don't get left in the sink. I wipe the water out of the sink. I don't, like, every time you take a shower, my tub is clean. Like, there are certain things that I was brought up with that just have, remained that way. And for some, that may be too much. But I still haven't heard anything that's so bad yet. But y'all tell me what you think, because this is coming from somebody who's really organized. Maybe someone who's not as organized can let me know, like, okay, maybe Mary was doing too much. It's okay. You can put it down below. Let me know. Chaos. I'm sure the kids felt as if they always had someone yelling at them. My bedroom had a queen bed and a bunk bed shoved together in that tiny space. I walked past one day and saw the kids jumping from the top of the bunk bed onto my bed. I didn't want to ruin their fun, but I knew that if they saw me, I would have to put it to an end. I walked away. The memory still makes me smile. Soon after we got to Northern Wyoming, I applied for a job at the Powell Museum. The interviewer asked me about my children. When I talked about Mary's and Janelle's children, I called them my nieces and nephews, but really, they were my kids. And I described my sister wives as my sisters. Yes, I have childcare because my sisters are nearby. The interview went well, but when I got to my car, I sat there feeling awful about it. I went back inside. I lied to you, I said. I'm sure she was in shock, figuring I was going to tell her I was a felon or didn't have a visa or something. I'm really sorry. I am a polygamist. There are 3 wives. We raise our children together. If we're going to be working together, you need to know the truth. I apologized and told her it's common in our culture because we've had so much to fear from the outside world. But she was great. We got on so well, and I love working there more than anywhere else I've ever worked. I gave tours through the Homesteader Museum in Powell, Wyoming, and sometimes I got to work at the Buffalo Bill Historical Center, which I loved. During the 5 years I worked part-time there, my boss never told a soul. The real magic began about a year after we moved into a ranch house, when we built Mary a house on the same property, and she moved out. Then Janelle moved to a house closer to town. So basically, they were great when they lived apart. That's what she's saying. So why would Cody ever think that the one house would be something they wanted when they all seemed to be great when they lived apart? In Wyoming, we added to our family. Janelle had Gabriel a few days before I had Gwendolyn. That's 10 kids if you're keeping count. I hadn't planned to name the baby Gwendolyn, but she gave me no choice. As I was driving home from work, I heard clear out of the blue, Mom. My name is Gwendolyn. I went home and told Cody, her name is Gwendolyn. Huh, he said. I don't know how I feel about that. I explained. She told me her name is Gwendolyn, and that was that. When I was pregnant with Gwendolyn, strangers would rub my belly. I don't know why people don't ask if they could do that, but it was almost like Gwendolyn pulled them in. She would move for them. Usually when someone touches your stomach, the baby freezes. Gwendolyn would press up against their hand, wanting to be seen, just like today. She loved it. I loved being pregnant with her. I worried about things being fair and just, and I would bring things up with Cody I never would have talked about before. That's what Gwendolyn is like. She needs things to be balanced, even as a kid. If she got 2 cookies, then Gabe should get 2 cookies too. There's no drama in it. She just wants the justice with the blindfold and the scales. I like that. I like that. Her birth was my absolute favorite. The pain never got that bad. My hips, as usual, weren't aligned. Turn on ABBA, I said. I got this. They turned on Mamma Mia, and I started lip singing. I went into transition during the song, crouched down on the floor on all fours, worked through the transition, got up, finished the song, and had her in 15 minutes. It was amazing. Christine, you are a beast. I give it up to all the people out there who are doing this and multiple times at that at home. The sheer thought of that scares me. And with no meds and all those other things. I did 12 hours without meds, and they gave me what's it called? They gave me an epidural towards the end because my blood pressure was so high. They were worried they were going to have to give me a cesarean. They wanted to already have all that administered. But when I tell you that that is night and day, like, I give it up to women who just do it, you know. And either way, let me say this. Either way, you're phenomenal. But to you women who do that without pain meds, you're beast. Oh, ain't no way. If I ever did it again, forget the 12 hours. Just go ahead and get me now. Inject me now. Por favor. Okay. Also, I recently find out through DNA testing that I'm related to Meryl Streep. Okay. Years later, when Gwendolyn started saying things like, I don't think that's fair, or I don't think that's right, I understood. I remembered. Oh, I was like that when I was pregnant with you. That's when I started to piece things together, that I take on traits of my kids when I'm pregnant. After Gwendolyn was born in 2001, Janelle worked full-time during the day, so I watched her kids and was the main caregiver in our family. This saved me. Polygamy appealed to me most because of the kids. I wanted my kids to experience having other moms, but I also wanted the friendship with those sister wives and didn't understand how much work would go into that. When you think about it, 50% of marriages end in divorce. So what are the chances of building permanent loving relationships with 3 adults you barely know? It was work, but I was committed. They were too. We had a lot of good days. As I was figuring out my spot in the family, I realized that I like get-togethers and I love holidays. I love to play party wife. Thanksgiving was a production. One time we had 72 people for dinner. Crazy, but it's a lovely holiday because it's just about gathering and gratitude, not so much about consumerism. Pumpkin, everything. I talked with Mary and Janelle about their favorite traditions and foods. Mary liked to cook the turkey, and Cody liked her turkey, and she liked to make her mom's dressing. Her potatoes are so good. Holiday foods are important to all of us, but maybe more so to Mary than to anybody else. She had things she made for specific holidays, and that was the only time they could be eaten. We couldn't make crab dip for Valentine's Day because it was for New Year's only. Okay, Mary. Yeah. Yeah, I understand certain traditional dishes. Like, the only time that growing up my family made like goat was for holidays. Period. You better enjoy your different types of chicken. And you'll get your goat and you get your oxtails for special occasions. But to say like crab dip, you can only have it for the... Come on, that's a bit much. That's a bit much. Okay, let's keep going. Fondue was for another holiday. Why? I thought, why can't we have fondue anytime? Tradition. Even now, I make some of those foods for specific holidays because my kids love those traditions so much. For Thanksgiving, I make beautiful rolls. One of my favorite memories will always be Cody's mom teaching me how to make those rolls. She swore by certain brands and used a wooden spoon to beat in every cup of flour by hand. I use an electric mixer. Then we figured out the pies. Pie. Janelle and I started making pies together in Wyoming. We perfected a recipe we called chocolate pie heaven. I don't like the way that sounds. I'm salivating at the thought of it. It's perfectly rich enough. Whipping cream. I'm not talking about frozen whipped topping. That's an abomination. My German mothers would have my neck. And Janelle made the crust. That woman excels at homemade pie crust. I cheat and use Pillsbury. In that first house in Wyoming, we had to figure out the oven and what to make ahead of time. We started preparing months before. Mary's pretzel salad, Jell-O cream cheese pretzel crust. My kids loved it. Could be handled the day before. Pies could be done the day before. But if we were having dinner at 2 p.m. Thursday, we tracked back to figure out what went in the oven when. The turkey needed to be warm, but it would take time to make the gravy, and that would give me a chance to put the rolls in the oven, and that was key because we needed to smell them as we sat down for dinner. As the kids got older, they helped in the kitchen. They still love making those rolls. One year, I had everyone write what they were grateful for on a slip of paper, and I baked them inside the rolls. No one could eat the rolls until everyone read their slip of paper. That sounds disgusting to me. It sounds sweet, but it sounds a little disgusting. I'm ripping my roll and there's paper in the middle of it. Okay, this is not a fortune cookie. My kids say that was the most rubbish year ever. The meal itself, I rarely got a chance to sit down for it with all the ups and downs of platters and courses and second helpings. So much work always goes into Thanksgiving, and then it's over in an instant. But I loved every bit of it, from planning it together to preparing the meal together. I'm sure it was more stressful than I remember, but I loved Mary's and Janelle's company as we cooked together. Always. I always loved that. I thought y'all said being in the kitchen together was rough. So was being in the kitchen together rough for Janelle? Or was it only rough on times that it wasn't holidays? Let's continue. I love holidays. I loved honoring everyone's family history and traditions. I love thinking about what everyone brought to the family. On December 6th, because of my German ancestry, we celebrated St. Nicholas Day by putting candy in the kids' shoes. But then they would have too much candy, so we made decorated gingerbread houses. Eventually, we used graham crackers because the gingerbread never held together. One year, Garrison decided to make an elaborate graham cracker train, and he couldn't get it to hold together with frosting. Finally, I pulled out a glue gun. But then you can't eat it, he said, so worried about missing out. So cute. It's okay, I told him. We'll set some graham crackers aside for eating. He made a massive train, and as the other kids looked at their own leaning cottages, they wondered at and admired Garrison's project. Whoa, Garrison's is the best. From then on, everyone used the hot glue gun, and I let them eat all the crackers they wanted afterward. For a while, Cody didn't want to do Christmas. His best friend had decided to do only the Jewish holidays because he felt that was most pleasing to God. He figured these were the holidays Jesus had. Absolutely, I said. Whatever you want to do, I'll do it. Of course, I'll do Shabbat. I'll do Hanukkah. I would braid I always say this wrong, Challah. Alexa, how do you pronounce Challah?
I pronounced that challah.
Challah. Alexa, stop. The challah bread, and my kids love that. That's a pretty piece of bread. But more than anything, it was about having everyone together once a week. I hosted Shabbat often. We stopped doing Easter too. Cody and Janelle researched it and determined it was more pagan than Christian. That broke my heart. My moms, with their witch hats and cauldron of orange juice on Halloween mornings of my childhood, didn't approve. My other mother, Aunt Suzanne, worried that the kids would be sad and said we should replace it with something equally fun. Cody went with Passover, which somehow wasn't the same. I continued to live in the small ranch house where I cooked for, cleaned up after, disciplined, and homeschooled our 10 kids. They were a rowdy bunch, but as they got older, they started to look after each other when they weren't wrestling or yelling. I did everything I could to keep them focused on their lessons. At one point, we built an empire in the backyard, complete with canals and homes. Then we created this intricate communication system with Quipu. Alexa, how do you pronounce Quipu?
From SuProfiles.com. I pronounce it as if it rhymes with yogi.
Okay, it didn't pronounce it. Or strings, Quipu, by the way, or strings with knots tied in different numbers and distances to relay messages. The kids would use the Quipu to show how much corn or wheat they had, and then they would run it over to another tribe. I did my best, but I didn't have much money, and I had 10 kids under the age of 13. So while I have fond memories of teaching them, I knew they weren't getting the education they needed. We played games to teach them math and Latin roots, but McKelty struggled with reading, and I could see that Garrison and Peyton were falling behind too. It wasn't always ideal because my work situation. I worked at the museum, spent one evening a week at Walmart, and had a paper route, but it helped me find my place in the family. I felt like as a woman, we started to figure out how we could live together-ish, but also help each other. She had all those jobs and Robin didn't have none. Let me keep going. If you think about it, most of us have friends we love to spend small amounts of time with, but who would drive us crazy if they lived in the spare bedroom. We started to settle into something more realistic. Another woman started to show interest in Cody, but this time none of us were interested. She and Cody worked in the same town, so she would get a ride to our house and then have Cody take her to work. She flirted with him constantly, and Cody can be ridiculously flirty too. But her flirting with a married guy was not super cool. She was extra. Her mom and dad started hinting at possibilities, but nobody talked about a potential courtship. Her dad had 2 wives. They should have known better. And she didn't work on a relationship with Mary, Janelle, and me. She called constantly, and Cody spent a lot of time on that phone with her. I got sick of it. I thought she disrespected our marriages to Cody. I remember I was tired all the time because I was pregnant, so I took a nap. Look, if she calls again, you need to let me intervene. I told Mary and Janelle, this is ridiculous. She called. Janelle knocked on my door. Where is the phone? I asked. We gave it to Cody, she said. Seriously? Cody was in the garage working with his brothers. I opened the door and I could see he was on the phone. So I roared her name. Picture Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction. Well, or maybe Ursula in The Little Mermaid. I love Ursula. Are you talking to her right now? I said to Cody. Yeah, he said. Give me the phone, I said as I grabbed it. You have made a wrong decision here, I said to the woman. You should have been brown-nosing me. In a plural family, you have to build a relationship with the wives too. And you chose to ignore us. And that is your problem. And you will never get further than this. It is over. You will get your own rides to work. You will not call him anymore. You will not get through me. And then I hung up the phone. When I looked up, Cody's brothers were all standing with their mouths open because they had never seen that side of me. I'm the fun, happy-go-lucky, everything's always peachy wife. But don't cross me. That's not going to work out well for you. I've talked with the woman since, and she said, yeah, I behaved badly. And I said, yeah, I may have too. She's happily married now. We focus on raising our kids together as siblings. In our culture, aunt is synonymous with other mom. You know what? Before I forget, she should have went off on Cody too, because that's her husband. He owed her more than that lady did. I'm just saying. My other mom was Aunt Suzanne, and as a kid, I didn't understand why until I realized it was a protection against the outside world. Even before we went public, we decided we didn't want to do that. We also didn't like Mother Mary or Mother Christine. It felt old-fashioned. Mother Goose, Mother Teresa, Old Mother Hubbard, ill. We had all the kids call us by our first names, so I was mom to my kids and Christine to Mary and Janelle's kids. I never was a fan of them calling them by their names, but that's just me. Then we raised them as siblings. Gwen learned to speak before Gabe, and because she called me mom, he started to too. I stopped it immediately, of course, but it was so cute. I love taking care of all those kids. I also like having a set community of women I trusted and could count on to help raise my kids. We had the same morals and values, and I knew the kids' other moms could help sculpt them into good people, especially because the three moms had different personalities. There was always someone each kid could identify with. During their teenage years, we knew that would be especially important. I had lived through it with my own moms. Our kids would also learn how to be around different kinds of people. With all the kids and the moms, which I thought would help them in the future, we created our own village to raise our children. I'd also seen beautiful relationships among sister wives. When my grandpa died, my grandmas became close. They always been best friends, but that friendship grew after he died. I wanted that sisterhood. Grandpa was brilliant at plural marriage. Each of his wives believed she was his favorite. I wonder if that's really true. I asked some of them. They each said they knew the other wives also believed they were Grandpa's favorite. Okay. He made them all feel special and like he loved them as individuals. That's why it was so devastating when the law found out about them and they were separated for years. When they found each other again, they built a tight bond. For a while, it felt like Mary, Janelle, and I might be headed that way, especially if we kept working on ourselves. Even the kissing got better in Wyoming. As a young woman, I was all about practicing. What do you want to do for your birthday? Cody would ask. Can we go for a drive and make out? I asked. Come on, he said. Let's do something different. He was never into the idea, but he was attentive in other ways. When I was pregnant with Isabel in 2003, the diamond fell out of my wedding ring. We were on a drive, and I had my hand out the window, and when I pulled it back in, the diamond was gone. Have you ever seen a ring without a stone? It gapes like a black hole. I was devastated. That's okay, Cody said. Why don't we go and pick out a new ring together? I think you need a new story for this one. We drove to Billings, Montana, where he often worked for a weekend, and we picked out a second ring. I loved that ring. Those were happy times. Found out a week before Isabel was born in June that it was only my midwife's 10th birth. That freaked me out completely, and I talked to Cody about the need to focus during her birth. Cody, you cannot talk to the midwife during contractions, I said. As always, he was fully engaged. He rubbed my back through the whole thing. But Isabel, she was an awkward-looking baby. Ugh, I remember thinking, what have I given birth to? She looks nothing like me. She looks nothing like Cody. I don't know who she looks like. She knows that's what I thought. And she also knows that if she weren't absolutely gorgeous, I would never make fun of what a silly looking baby she was for the first several months of her life. My brother was funny looking too. So I get it. You can only say that about your own kids. I'm just saying. I've heard people say that moms don't know when their kids aren't attractive. I know this to be untrue. When my dad first saw her, she was about 6 months old. She looks just like you, he said. What rubbish. I dug up the old baby pictures. She looked just like me. And I was a homely baby. I wasn't cute at all. After a few months, she became adorable and the cutest little sash you ever seen. And we figured we'd go ahead and keep her. She was such a daddy's girl. She always wanted her dad, always. Cody was a good dad. Janelle had Savannah in December 2004. So we were up to 12 kids while we were in Wyoming. Cody was usually gone during the week for work, but on the weekends, he'd always do something with the kids. That usually meant yard work, but they also helped Mary build her house. The kids loved being around him. They all had little tool belts just like Dad. He was fun, and I loved to watch him with them. We would pull up all the weeds in the garden, then bundle them together for bonfires. We always had one for Garrison's birthday because he was a bit of a pyromaniac, and Cody would let him light the fire. You can light only 3 matches, Janelle would tell Garrison, and you have to do it with an adult. As we gathered wood for the bonfire, 6-year-old Garrison would stare at the cupboard where we kept the matches. Finally, I would get the matchbox for him, and he would take it to Cody. Cody would let him hold the box and light the fire. It was adorable. He loved to light the fire. On the weekends, we played. If it snowed, we had snowball fights and went sledding. We go for drives to Cody's dad's ranch. We tried to set up piñatas a few times, but our kids were just too happily aggressive to be waving sticks around. They're crazy with Red Rover, too. They're all built tough and fierce, little forces of nature. That is what I wanted, I often thought. My mom and I continued to work on our relationship, too. She tried to work out her religious beliefs, and it was hard on me when she gave up on religion completely, at least in the organized sense. I felt like she was forever changing her identity, which I wouldn't understand at all until much later. But she was the best grandma ever. I realized I wanted her in my life in a big, meaningful way, and things got so much better. We stopped trying to reconcile her not being in my church anymore and decided to be mother and daughter, exactly. I don't know how I would have made it through any of it without her. Just before I married Cody, she married Wayne, the man I've been so angry about her dating after she left my dad, and he was an incredible grandpa to my kids. I didn't know she got married. I saw them both differently through my children's eyes. I'll never forget when my sister called and said, "Wayne's in the hospital. You have to get here." None of us had known he was sick. "We don't know what's going on, but you have to say goodbye," my sister said. Cody and I packed up. Cody didn't hesitate, and within an hour, we were on our way to Utah to see him at the hospital. Wayne died a couple years later of undiagnosed cancer. A couple of days later of undiagnosed cancer. He helped me heal my relationship with my mom. I love Wyoming. I think we all did, and we found our rhythm there. Things could be tight, but we had a flock of kids, and we did everything together. But just after Gwendolyn was born in 2001, after another argument in the family, Janelle moved in with her mom for about 8 months. That's Janelle's story to tell, but it would never be easy for all of us, including Cody, to manage personalities and jealousy, and sometimes it felt hard to get away from the conflicts. Soon after Cody announced he had gotten a job in Utah. "Are you kidding me?" I remember saying. "There are 14 people in this family, and you're only concerned with one?" I thought we would stay in Wyoming for the rest of our lives, but it would only be 5 years. We were close to his family, and we were close with members of our church. I was homeschooling the kids. Sure, we were poor, but we had a big magical garden, and we canned and bottled, and we bought food in bulk. We made it work, and I had moved around so much as a child that moving still stresses me out. It causes so many disruptions: school, friends, kids, housing, proximity. Everything's a struggle. "I'm just trying to create a better life for my family," he said. "How is that a better life?" I asked. "It's not going to be a better life." And that is where we're going to end today's reading. I'm going to start doing these one day at a time. Let's say Monday through Friday. Let me know what you thought of this reading. Until next time.